back, everyone, to a very special episode of Let's Talk Broncos. Tonight, we have a very special guest who's going to be joining us, and that is going to be the Ryan Blackburn. He's the lead Nuggets analyst for the Mile High Sports and the host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. We're excited for him to join us tonight, fresh off of a championship run, 47 years in the making. He's joining the Let's Talk Broncos crew to give us some pointers on what lessons the Denver Broncos can learn from your Nuggets championship run. Ryan, welcome. We're so happy to have you. So excited to have you here on the show. Eventually he'll come in on here.
There you go, Ryan.
Oh. There we go.
The double click of death. Let's go.
Double click of death.
How are you guys?
No amount of planning is going to get away from that, but that is all right here. Ryan, we're doing great. How are you? And I wanted to tell you that the LTB community wanted to give their graciousness and thanks for your anti-jinxing campaign because it seems to have paid off tremendously.
It's awesome. I think that's one of the funniest stories for me of this season was that I didn't know that was going to be a thing. I didn't know that was going to be my thing, but how that came about, I have a guy who sits next to me named Matt Moore, who's HP Basketball on Twitter. And every time that I talk to him, every time I say something to him, the opposite would then happen at the Nuggets game. So I'm like, okay, let's just turn this into a thing. Every time I post it, every time I talk about it, and it led all the way to a title. So who knows? Who knows what's going on? But I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much. I am glad that my anti-jinx campaign could satisfy everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not already, we implore you to go on over, subscribe to Mile High Sports YouTube page, and follow Ryan over on Twitter at NBA Blackburn. That is a requirement. There's no way around it. But tonight, we thought it would be a great opportunity because the Broncos have been less than ideal in the last, 7-8 years since Super Bowl 50. It's been a little rough. The Nuggets have had their fair share of lowly seasons. We've got Nug life in recent memory. The stretches, the eras, it's all been leading up to the golden era for the Denver Nuggets. And tonight we thought it would be fun to reminisce about the joyous playoff run and ultimately the finals that led to the dominant NBA champions that you can call your Denver Nuggets. So it's the pleasure of the fans while also hoping there's some lessons that the Denver Broncos can learn and Sean Payton can adopt for the Broncos leading into the season because it's going to be football time before we know it. We wanted to throw it over to you, Ryan. First and foremost, what was the most important lesson that the Denver Nuggets faced, learned, and overcame? And do you think that the Broncos could adapt it?
Well, I'd say probably the most important thing was them. There was a discussion that they had at the beginning of the season towards training camp. It was don't talk about it, be about it. You have to be willing to do the tough things, be willing to do the things that everybody thinks that you should be doing, that everybody knows that championship teams do. But at some point, somebody's got to sacrifice. At some point, somebody has to do the thing. And most importantly for Denver, it was the defensive end. They had not been great up through the month of November. So like early parts of the season where it didn't matter as much. But then during the middle of the season, the bulk of the season where they wanted to really show out as best as they could, they rose to the occasion defensively. They were a top 10 defense, and they proved to everybody, especially Nuggets folks, that they could defend at a championship caliber level. They already knew about the offense that I think everybody knows about that with Nikola Jokic, but you know that you have to do it on both ends of the floor. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You have to have answers to all of the different questions that teams are going to pose to you in the playoffs. And they had all those answers. And it took a little bit. Took a little bit of a weird stuff at the beginning of the season and at the end of the regular season, but they got through it. And most importantly, they survived it, and they survived it together. They never wavered in what their plan was. And that, to me, it showed conviction, it showed confidence, and it showed a lot of poise.
Yeah. Ryan, I have to say, you bring up a really good point. If I'm relating to the Broncos now, you said, can the Nuggets do it on both sides of the floor? The Broncos have not been able to do it on both sides of the field, right?
Yeah.
That is the big issue with the Broncos, is that it is a defensive football team year in and year out, ever since Peyton Manning was left the Broncos. So that'd be great. Another thing that I've also heard, about this Nuggets team is you felt the energy from the offseason. It felt real. Like they really wanted to go after this championship. And that is something that I'm wanting from the Broncos so bad. It almost feels, every player is going to go out there and say, hey, we want to win the championship this year. That's my main goal. But there are very specific teams where you actually feel that, where it's like, oh, they are after it. You can look in their eyes and you can tell. And that's something that I haven't felt from the Broncos in recent years. I do think, though, the Nuggets took baby steps to get there. I mean, I've been watching every single Nuggets game of every single year since, Emmanuel Mudiay days, right? Who remembers that? I still have
shout out. It's a new day.
Exactly. And it took baby steps to get here from the time Jamal Murray missed. What was it? I forget how many shots he missed in a row during his rookie year. And it was baby steps to get to the point where they are. I'm hoping that this year for the Broncos is that year where we start to see those steps forward. And I think you made a really good point there.
Yeah, I probably argue that for the Broncos or for the Nuggets, it was not just about the steps, it was about the lessons. It was about the things that you had to learn along the way, the lumps that you had to take, but it was about steps of growth where okay, this is where you learn from that experience. This is where you improve upon that in following seasons. This is where the young players become seasoned veterans who have that hunger, who get close at various points, but know how fleeting it can be. The Jamal Murray injury is, of course, like I think a salient moment in Nuggets franchise history where they might have been able to win a championship sooner than they did. But the fact that he was out in each of the previous 2 playoff runs, I think it puts so much more pressure on them that this is our time this past season. Like they needed to do it. They knew that they had to get it done. And having that fire, having that desire, that hunger, that's a really important piece of this. And if I think about it from the Broncos perspective, I can't speak to it because I'm not at the mini camps, and the training camp has obviously not started yet. But are they talking about it from a championship perspective? Are they talking about it from a building perspective where you just have to get that foundation? Because it almost seems like they're still trying to figure out the foundation of what they can really trust, given that Russell Wilson has been as shaky as he has been in this first season.
All right.
I think that that foundation is something they're still looking for, to your point. But I do think they're not talking about it, kind of to something you said in your first bit, tying it in with the Broncos. Man, I feel, being on that beat and everything, also just being in the Denver area, I feel like every season since the Super Bowl, some player has talked about the playoffs. And every single year they come up short. This is the year. I feel like Von Miller, when he was on the team every offseason, was like, no, guys, for real. This is the year the quarterback's going to be good and the team's making the playoffs. And then when he left, like, Justin Simmons took up the mantle. And I don't blame him. I think that's like good team leadership, like trying to believe in things. But I think under Sean Payton, they're going to finally flip it. For so long, they've been the don't be about it, talk about it team. And I think now they might finally follow in the Nuggets' footsteps of don't talk about it, be about it. Also, the injury point you brought up, like, I think that ties in heavily with the Broncos. Now, they didn't have that like Western Conference Finals success preceding it, showing that they were a product that could compete at a high level. But I think the last couple seasons have been on hold because they've had some of the worst injury luck in the league. I think over the 2-season span, it's the very worst in the league.
Yeah, the Garrett Bowles and Javonte Williams injuries last year, I know that just, it sort of ended the season before it started in a lot of ways, because those are 2 guys that obviously your foundational pieces, your cornerstones. So like that, I can see that connecting extremely well to a Jamal Murray injury, where unfortunately in like in football land, like it's always a next man up mentality because you have such a large roster. And because when the quarterback isn't the one injured, then everybody else is replaceable, just as like replaceable. But it's not fully like that, especially if it mounts up as much as it does. So, and especially like that's your blindside protector, and that's your star running back that you're hoping to get. So I can have that sympathy for sure, just from an outsider perspective on that. But just knowing that it is always up from here. It can always go up. Like, and as you're trying to build up this young team, which it's still a young team, like there's plenty of opportunity for the growth to occur. But at some point, you've just got to string together a season where the quarterback is stable and gives you that foundation upon which you can build.
Ryan, let's talk about stability because we came up with a couple of lessons ourselves. The Denver Broncos, obviously, after Super Bowl 50, moved on from Peyton Manning and an onslaught of loss of talent. Obviously, the Denver Nuggets are not in any concern of losing their two-time MVP and Finals MVP in Nikola Jokic, so they're not losing their cornerstone piece. However, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, Jack White, they're gone. They've moved on. What do you think the Nuggets lesson is for championship hangovers? Because I think that was one of the higher up lessons that we wanted to replicate here. The Denver Broncos lost coaching. They added to the QB carousel that has been maddening them for years. They seem to be on it still. They haven't stepped off. They've lost every single player since the Super Bowl run, with Brandon McManus being the final player off that list. How do you feel about the championship hangover, and how are the Denver Nuggets going to avoid that? What can the Broncos learn from that as well?
Well, it's a great question because I do think that the championship hangover is going to be real. Like especially with Jokic and Murray, like once you've climbed to that summit, what is driving you now? What is driving you to be the best version of yourself going forward? That's a human nature thing for just about everybody. And I think at the NBA, you haven't had a repeat champion in the last 5 seasons. This is the first time in those 5 seasons that has actually happened. So going to be interesting to see whether they can replicate it. But I do think that there's a salient difference there where with Peyton Manning leaving, with him retiring, I remember this very vividly at that moment. It felt like a piece of the identity was going to change just because of how important he was, despite the fact that he wasn't this amazing quarterback anymore. He at least got them to the place where they needed to go and allowed the talent around him, especially on the defensive end, to just work and work their magic. That's a little bit different, I would say, than when you're getting with Trevor Siemian or Brock Osweiler or other guys that have rotated in and out, where you just don't have that confidence that they're going to put them into a place to succeed. With Denver, Jokic is going to be there and Murray is going to be there, and it's just going to feel like that's the best duo in basketball right now. And I don't think that they're changing. They're in their primes, and that's at least the hope the Nuggets fans are taking going forward, that identity isn't going to shift.
Yeah, I think that's another big difference between these two teams, especially when we talk about the championship hangover, is the Nuggets are built to survive that. Like with Jokic being, 27 right now?
28.
28?
Yeah.
And Murray being 27, 26, Porter Jr. being 24. Like they're all in the primes of their career, just about to start the primes of their career. And they're locked up for a while. And Jokic seems to be like the only superstar outside of maybe Giannis. But even Giannis has like a little bit of bubbling that no one's worried about ever leaving his team, which is so valuable.
What about the Lakers fans? Sorry.
Meanwhile, the 2015 Broncos were built like it was awesome. They won the Super Bowl. It was great, but not a very sustainable way. Like the 85 Bears didn't win multiple Super Bowls. The 2000 Ravens didn't win multiple Super Bowls. The Legion of Boom Seahawks came very close, but didn't win multiple Super Bowls. When you have that like kind of offense scraping by defensive minded thing, you're relying on so many pieces. You don't need just like 11 elite pieces, because you also need great depth behind those guys and everything just to sustain an elite defense. The Broncos had 4 guys average 5 pressures a game in the playoffs for that Super Bowl run. Just like insane stuff we've seen like 4 times in NFL history. You can't sustain that over a long run. The Nuggets are built a more sustainable way, I feel. But go
and one of those guys that I remember, if I do recall, Malik Jackson. Am I pulling the right name there? Malik Jackson gets that contract, I believe, from Jacksonville, and he leaves for this massive deal that. Like that's just part of the process where you start to have the Carrion Crows of the other team start to pick apart your defense and pick apart your talent. And the guys who were your 4th or 5th most important piece are now being paid like 1st or 2nd most important piece guys. And you can't afford everybody in a situation like Denver had. So it is really tough to win consistently in the NFL. Like I'm not a Tom Brady fan, believe me, but like he was just this like enigma in terms of being able to do it over and over again. And
you're totally right.
I hate it. Like,
totally
I'm
right.
gonna kick you off the podcast, Ryan.
Should we have the biggest Tom Brady fan?
Podcast for being a Tom Brady hater?
Yes, isn't that crazy?
It's insane. But Jokic reminds me of a quarterback that Broncos country might hate even more, a different number 15, Patrick Mahomes. And I think that Denver can at least take some solace in that. Like, it sucks you have to go up against that guy twice a year, but at least you have the basketball version, just in terms of like the ultimate floor raiser. And I think what we saw in the playoffs was, at this point in Jokic's career, he's just unguardable. Whatever you do, it's like it's not much like defenses facing Mahomes. It's not like, how do you stop him? It's like, how do you want to die? What's the best, like, do you want to die by him dropping 50 on you, or do you want to die by him dropping 20 points and 20 rebounds on you? It's like Mahomes, like, I guess it's better if we force him to make 80-yard drives down the field, is the same to me as teams being like, oh, I guess we just got to let Jokic drop 60. I don't know. I think the Nuggets are set up for a long time in that same sense. Like, the Chiefs lost some pieces from that first Super Bowl winning team. I think in the same sense the Nuggets lost Bruce Brown, and it was like, okay, well, we've got the dude, so let's just find the pieces around him and we can be right back at it again, because he's just the ultimate floor raiser.
Certainly makes it a lot easier. I'm hoping that Russell Wilson can kind of recapture some of that momentum that he had, and hopefully this is a little bit different under Sean Payton, but it is a little bit scary. Like, I'm not going to lie, and I know the Broncos fans are still feeling the same way, that he didn't give a lot of confidence over the course of this last season. So hopefully, there was a little bit of an end of season bump. Started to see a little bit of progress there, but I'm still a little bit skeptical about where that goes. But I want to be proven wrong. I would desperately like it, because, like, the city of Denver, as great as it has been with the Nuggets being like on fire, they put the city on fire. The Avalanche won their championship last year, or 2022. The city is even better when the Broncos are just killing it, like when they're just dominating. So I think everybody wants that. Everybody wants everybody else to do pretty well, and like, that's, I can't imagine what a championship parade for the Broncos would be like right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
As Coop in the chat alluded to, 8 years is a hell of a hangover. I think we've been in rehab. What a lot of the Nuggets have taught us as fans is that patience is super important. So is building around a team. You alluded to Jokic and Jamal Murray being the best duo in the league right now. And what the Nuggets have made sure everyone knows is that they've been built, not bought. What I think is important from that sentiment is, after heartbreaking bubbles and close calls, you've got young players who have an abundance of patience and perseverance. I think it's been the ultimate lesson for the team, and what they can learn from, because it's the most moral, right? At the end of the day, it's the sweetest one. It can be flaunted around because development is key. Develop the players, develop the relationships, develop the winning mentality, the identity of the team, and it doesn't have to be in key acquisitions. What worries me a little bit is the Denver Broncos have made very costly maneuvers in order to get not only Russell Wilson, but to get Sean Payton. So there's a little bit of a limit as to what the Denver Nuggets can do with the new limitations and requirements moving forward. So they have to be very smart moving forward in some of the key player acquisitions that they make. But can we talk a little bit about how dangerous it can be to pursue top stars, and maybe where the Broncos can start to develop their own players, increasingly in their rookies that they just drafted, but also in free agency as they move forward to start working towards another championship? Built, not bought is quite sweet. Can they do it again? And I will say, they didn't do it with Peyton Manning. They absolutely bought it, and I am 100% for it. But it doesn't always work out that way. Now we're in an almost decade rut. Talk to us, Ryan.
Well, and you can also make the case that the LA Rams were very much like that too, where you can do it in a bunch of different ways, and you can sell out on your draft picks, you can sell out on young players, bring in the veterans that want to ring chase. That's perfectly fine. But there is it's an unsustainable model, of course, and just look at the LA Rams this year. Like, there's a lot of reasons to at least like be a little bit cautious there. But what I will say in general is that, for a team like the Broncos, where now you have this massive deal with Russell Wilson, the salary cap in the NFL is very large, but if your quarterback is taking up a large percentage of that, then the margins have to be even better. You have to draft well if you've got this massive salary on your books. And like when you hit those margins, it makes it so much more easy to deliver on that. And I think a team like the Nuggets, Bruce Brown is I think probably the best example of them hitting on the margins, where they had one great opportunity to acquire somebody just for free. And they used it on Bruce Brown this last year, and they were able to cash that in. And Bruce Brown made $16 million extra than what he had this last year, based off of what he actually was able to accomplish just on a 1-year deal and delivering in the way that he did, but based off of the fit. You have to add players that are going to accentuate the strengths of your own team, and then minimize the weaknesses of those guys that are guaranteed going to be in place. So Russell Wilson's a great example. Like, I understand why they've invested a little bit more in the running back side of things. Like they got Samaje Perine, that you want Javonte Williams to continue to be that guy. But I know that there are some rumors about them wanting to go get another running back in terms of like one of these other top tier guys, like a Dalvin Cook and anybody of that nature. Maybe, but I'm glad that they went the other direction and instead looked like they've bolstered the offensive line a little bit more, and just like trying to make Russell's life a little bit easier, as opposed to just accounting for the fact that there's going to be some regression there. So like, I think that they're doing the right thing. I think that like the Broncos, you want to bolster that offensive line as much as possible, whether it's draft picks, whether it's free agency, whether it's trades. There's a guy who I'm going to talk about in my Denver Broncos starting 5 that I have listed from the offensive line additions that they have made.
I like it. I like it. Hey, and Ryan, you mentioned that piece was Bruce Brown, where you take a risk on someone. Maybe it's a lower deal. Bruce Brown, in his situation, was a 2-year deal with a player option at the end, obviously off to Indiana now. Congratulations to him and his big payday. Where I feel like the Broncos have gone wrong and continued to make moves like, trying to find their Bruce Brown at least is at right tackle. They keep signing the 1-year player. We're trying to find that guy over and over and over and over. I mean, we were talking about the quarterback carousel earlier. This right tackle carousel, you can't even fit in Six Flags anymore. This is crazy, this carousel. So I think I'm happy the Broncos, right? They went out and signed a Mike McGlinchey this offseason, locked him up.
He was the guy.
Yeah, exactly. This is the one. The main issue is this is kind of more of an unproven type talent. Like he's good, not super great. Sign him up to a long deal. This is our right tackle of the future now. We put all of our chips on the table for this guy. And I think that was an interesting point you made, because where you can find that Bruce Brown, the Broncos just haven't been able to do it. I don't know what that is. I think the Broncos have done a terrific job. I feel like they hit on so many of their draft picks. Like, I have very high hopes for Peyton Watson this next year. Christian Brown proved to play in the finals. Their scouting and development at that position in particular has been really, really bad. I wish they would find their Bruce Brown. They never have been able to.
Yeah, I don't know enough about free agency in the NFL in terms of what some guys were available for that kind of a bargain bin contract where, hey, you could see them making a leap in the system, because I still don't know what the Broncos system's going to be around Russell Wilson.
Right.
And because that's really the core of it, right? It's hard to find those pieces on the margins when you don't know whether the identity is what works. And for a team like the Nuggets, they've never had that question around Nikola Jokic. They know that as long as you play Jokic-style basketball, you are going to be just fine. And here are some pieces around him that accentuate that. And that's exactly what Bruce Brown was. For a guy like Russell Wilson, I mean, this is, again, an outsider perspective who I've tried to stay as unbiased as possible on this. What is the identity around it? And you guys get all the quarterback talk, I'm sure. Yeah. But like the identity around that, totally. Is that what works? Is that what you can count on consistently? And who are some of the players, if it does work, where you can accentuate those strengths that he brings to the table?
Yeah, so you need to hit on more Bruce Browns than you do Facu Campazos. The Broncos find 15 Facus at right tackle.
I think the better like Russell Wilson comparison, talking about that situation, is John Collins, or Jordan Poole. And in that sense, I mean, these ridiculous big contracts that are maybe not given out to a player of that worth, and then all of a sudden they're not all that valuable. They might still be a decent player, but the fact they're this isn't Nuggets specific, it's more NBA specific, but I think it ties in with this new CBA, this new world, and it ties in with the NFL too. When you have a guy playing $30 million under their cap value or under their cap hit, it's a team building problem. And even if they're still a good player, I think like Jordan Poole's the best comp here, maybe even Chris Paul, like still a net positive in a vacuum on the basketball court, like they've still got talent. If the contract is so ridiculous, they're ultimately a negative because of how it hand ties you with team building. I think that's
I have a better
to the Russ investment.
I have a better comp for you. It's Bradley Beal.
Bradley Beal. Yes, that's it. That's it.
Where you've got this massive contract, and he's been around this middling, like sort of disappointing franchise in Washington for a while. Now, like a team like Phoenix can acquire him. I'm not sure if it's going to make a big change for Phoenix, but they can absolutely win. Phoenix can. They can win a title with Bradley Beal. But the most important factor there is that he's their third best player. He's not their first best player, even though he's making their top player money. Like, that's the thing. You cannot be the central identity in that. The problem is that with the quarterback position being as tied into the identity as it is in the NFL, like that's a really tough pill to swallow. So hopefully they can make it work. That I think is the really salient issue with where Denver's at right now, and what they can continue to do going forward is who can you build around that can sort of generate a new identity? Is it the defense? Is it the running game? Is it finding this singularly dominant wide receiver or tight end that can really make Russell Wilson's life easier? Sort of like I don't know, the receiving core around Jared Goff for the LA Rams at one point. Like I could see that being a little bit of a different way to approach it, but maybe a better way to approach it.
Well, let's talk about big personalities. We know, and we've talked about Bruce Brown just in the last segment, a big personality like that. Is there a coincidence that the Denver Nuggets were able to win a championship with a athlete and personality to the caliber that is Bruce Brown? I'd like to liken it to Super Bowl champions and of past, Aqib Talib, who was a massive personality in his own right. Maybe not comparable identically, but they were both very enigmatic characters for each team. What do you think led to their contributions to each championship, and can they repeat that? What do you look like in a player?
A great way to describe Aqib Talib is enigmatic. That's perfect. I love that. No, I think you have to have some swagger. You have to have some belief that you deserve to be there, that you are the best at your job, and that you are going to be the difference in winning a title versus not. And I think that Bruce approached that, like he's always played with confidence. There's no doubt for sure. But he's always approached that with the confidence of, I am the difference maker. These teams don't value me enough. I'm going to prove them wrong. And that, I think that approach is fantastic in football in general, because there's a very physical element of it, obviously, where you can outmuscle a guy, you can outquick a guy, and then there's these one-on-one matchups that you win, whether it's on the inside or the outside, that can really make a difference for a team if you play with that swagger. And like, there's a lot of defensive guys on the Broncos that, like, I think of Pat Surtain, like that just the way that he comports himself, the way that he carries himself, he's gonna be able to just play with that swagger of, you cannot target this half of the field. That's a really, really cool thing. So there are ways that I think you can take that attitude that I think that the 2015 Broncos especially had, that you can translate it to the teams going forward, but you have to be able to build it from a place of confidence where you've been there before and you know what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I have a Nuggets question for you real quick.
Sure.
Who do you think, so if it is important to have a personality like that, when I'm talking about the personality, I'm talking about that guy that's getting in D'Angelo Russell's head in the playoffs. I'm talking about that type of player. Is there a player on the Nuggets right now that you think can step up into a role like that? Or is that even a necessity?
Denver's entire personality is it generally takes its cues from either Jokic or Murray. Bruce Brown was kind of he was an independent factor of that, but he embraced Denver culture very strong. He was a Boston guy, obviously, so
Right.
abrasive was just part of his nature. So I think that Christian Brown could do it. He's a little bit more reserved in general, but as he develops some more confidence in the league, he can be a talker. He could be a guy who dunks on somebody or locks somebody up and then stares them down. Porter, definitely more of a quieter guy, but you saw him get into Zach Collins' face when he dunked on him and then decided he was going to choke him out for some reason. That was cool. That was... But I think Jamal is probably the guy that he does generally like to be quieter, but think about how many times during this playoff run where he was just looking at somebody in disgust for thinking that they could guard him. That confidence and that swagger, I think that translates to the rest of the team.
Totally. I like that answer. You saw a lot of that at Kentucky, right? Or not Kansas, my bad. Kansas. You saw a lot of that at Kansas.
Or against Minnesota.
At Kansas. And I love that. Or even when he's celebrating, the Denver Nuggets championship win, you could tell he has a little bit of that in him. You could tell he's not afraid of the spotlight whatsoever. Not at all.
How he played in the finals, I think, tenacity there, and then also how he baited the Timberwolves into that technical foul in the first round. He's got.
I remember that. Yeah, that's a good shout. That's so funny that you remember that specifically because with as many moments as happen in a playoff run, completely forgot that. Just completely. So that's a great moment that kind of shows the character and shows the abrasiveness that sometimes you have to have. You have to show that you belong as a rookie. So I think he's going to do great next year.
Absolutely. Coop says in the chat over on YouTube, also that secondary, referring to Super Bowl 50, complemented each other so well. I think we can say that a lot about the Denver Nuggets, this team specifically. They've grown into a singular unit that sort of breathes and ebbs and flows against each other. I think it's a great fit there. A lot of what we saw on that lights out, no fly zone defense, as good as Akib was, so is Chris Harris Jr., TJ Ward, Darian Stewart, Bradley Roby, lightning in a bottle. So hard to capture that a second time. Well, we tried to do it last season. We tried to call him the no-fly zone 0.2. That didn't work out as great. We're hoping for a defensive showing this year, but who knows what kind of hangover we're in for 2023. Guys, today we thought it would be really fun if we took the Denver Broncos roster and tried to make a Nuggets starting 5 team with those Denver Broncos. Obviously, a great, impeccable timing. There was a TikTok video released where they were asked who, is the best basketball player on the team. A lot of the guys were pretty humble. Some of them not so much. And you got a ton of votes for what I think is a lot of our unanimous ones. I don't want to speak for Ryan. So Ryan, I'm going to send it over to you first. Give me your Denver Broncos starting 5.
Well, just as somebody who did not see that video and has zero background on which Broncos actually are good at basketball,
right.
I am just going to go.
You have the eye for talent.
Personal view on what I want from a starting 5, what I want from these positions. I'm thinking point guard. This is the person up the middle that has great vision. I think of it as up the middle of the offense or up the middle of the defense. I'm thinking you either go with your center or your quarterback on the offensive side, but I'm going to throw a curveball immediately, and I'm going Alex Singleton. I'm going with Alex Singleton on the defensive end. Quarterback's the defense, wide-ranging, sees the field, just can do a lot of different things, and you just want somebody who can see the entire field and make decisions, and that's the guy that wears the green dot, I assume. So, I love that. I think that he'd be a great guy to distribute the basketball, and he'd be a more defensive-minded point guard, of course.
Yes. I love that. I love that pick. I don't have Alex Singleton on mine. That was a great pick. I didn't even think about Alex Singleton. That's a good one. I like it.
Perfect. Shooting guard. Let's go. Shooting guard. Pat Surtain. I want somebody who's an athlete, who's rangy, who can go off the dribble a little bit, who can shoot, but somebody that carries themselves with a lot of swagger, that knows how good they are and can deliver on just everything you want them to do on both ends of the floor. That's what I want. Small forward, I'm going with the LeBron James clone himself, Greg Dulcich at tight end. That's my guy. Like you want somebody who's an athlete. You want somebody who can go up over the top, who can do a lot of different things. I think everybody's pretty high on Greg Dulcich in Bronco country right now, so he'd be pretty good. Power forward, I struggled with this one because your power forward is kind of like a dirty work guy a lot of times. So I'm going to go with an edge rusher, somebody that also has to do a little bit of the defensive work on for everybody, but has to set the edge. I went with Baron Browning. That's the guy who I think everybody wants to, like, he's their sack artist. I'm pretty sure on Bronco country, that's who I'm thinking. Yeah. And then for center, I couldn't, like, you got to set screens. You got to be your guy who's patrolling the middle of the floor, set screens on the offensive end, rolls to the rim, is just a very physical presence. I couldn't decide between Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey. 6'8" Mike McGlinchey. Like, I read that, I'm like, that's perfect. That's the guy who I think I'm going with. So let's go with Mike McGlinchey as my center.
Ryan, you have a great list. I have to say it. Baron Browning and Alex Singleton were two that I did not even consider in mine. And now that you kind of explained your reasoning, I don't mind it at all. Baron Browning, very, very, like, extremely talented athlete, right? When we're talking about just athleticism, Baron Browning has that and more. He's one of the most athletic people. Just in the entire NFL, matter of fact. The entire NFL, Baron Browning tested off the charts. If you looked at his relative athletic score, he's like 9.9 something. He's in the 99th percentile of athletes. So, hey, you don't mind that at power forward. Kind of reminds me of a guy the Nuggets have right now in Aaron Gordon, 99th percentile athlete, no doubt about it.
Let's go. We know it. Like, we got it here.
Sorry. The Singleton pick, it wasn't what I'd think of, but I could totally see him being like Pat Bev, smacking the floor for like LeBron or something like that. Just has that dog energy in him, and then also just I think sifts through traffic really well. That could maybe be an advantageous.
The three guys that I had on my list for point guard were Alex Singleton, Justin Simmons, and Russell Wilson. Okay. I don't know, like, if that's where you guys were thinking on that, but I think that just I'm envisioning almost like baseball too, where the players up the middle are the ones where you really want to fill it out. You really want the guys that are the smartest, that can do the most. And I kind of like the idea of Russell Wilson, obviously, because he's your quarterback, point guard, yada, yada. But like Alex Singleton, Justin Simmons, I think that those are two interesting picks.
Interesting. I like it.
I'm with you on Justin Simmons. I can throw my starting five out next. I've got Justin Simmons at point guard. Reached out to friend of the show, Mile High Mario Vitanzi, good friends with Justin Simmons, who confirmed to me that Justin Simmons got some D1 basketball attention and chose to go play football D1 instead. I looked for a lot of basketball players with my research here. And then also in that TikTok video that Bree mentioned, he received the most votes out of guys in the locker room, as like he's the best basketball player on the team.
Okay.
Also, total team leader in the same sense that I think Singleton is brains of the defense. Simmons, I think, has a lot of that responsibility too. He could be the quarterback of my team. So I got him at the 1. At the 2, I got Caden Stearns. He compared himself to Steph Curry in that TikTok video, which I don't know if that's true, but maybe he's got crazy shooting ability. He's a big Steph Curry fan. When we had him on the show, we asked him who his MVP was. And he said Nikola Jokic because he's in Denver, but you could tell he wanted to say Steph Curry. This was
Zach. We asked him, is Nikola Jokic, or we asked him why is we asked him we pretty much framed it as Nikola Jokic is the MVP.
Prove us wrong.
Who is it? That's what we said.
And he was like, I don't know, Curry's pretty good, but so maybe he has that shot, maybe he doesn't. But his dad was I didn't know this until I was doing research for this. His dad was a D1 basketball player at Baylor, so I imagine he grew up around basketball. Also, all his brothers were D1 athletes for football, so good athletic genes in the family. I think he was probably grew up around some basketball as a kid and can do it. So he's my 2 guard. At the 3, I've got Cortland Sutton. I forgot about this, but remembered looking it up. He was the second most voted guy in that TikTok. But looking it up, he played Division I college basketball. I totally forgot about this. He played for SMU. He suited up for like 3 games his freshman year. And then they were like, no, we don't want to risk injury with you. But his freshman year, he was on the SMU basketball team. So legit hooper. He is my small forward, good size on the team too. And then Joey pointed this one out to me, Randy Gregory. He received D1 basketball offers before he decided to play football. Big guy. Like, I think he's only like 6'4", 6'5", but he's a guy where in the locker room, he feels so much bigger than that. I can't imagine how Ryan feels in the Nuggets locker room.
It was on my list of like, okay, so I'm seeing all of your guys. Like, man, there are my second choices for all these lists, and I've just clearly just one step off of your list. That's okay, but like,
I think it also credits your eye for basketball, because you eyed all the guys who got basketball offers at some point. And then at my 5, I also had McGlinchey, so we're in lockstep there. Perfect. I did not know what to do at center, and he's the biggest dude on the team in terms of height. And he wears that height well. Like, he's pretty mobile and everything. And sorry, Ryan said, I think he could just be like a good rim rolling center and fulfill that job.
Love that.
Yes.
Joey, you're up next.
Okay. Well, I'm happy Zach gave me credit on Randy Gregory right there, because he did have Tim Patrick ahead of him until I DM'd him and said Tim Patrick cannot guard Randy Gregory.
I started looking into it. I'm like, I don't know. Randy Gregory's never played basketball.
Yeah, but he's like.
Anyway, I have Caden Stearns at my point guard. I want to score first point guard, and Caden Stearns came on this podcast. Ryan, we ask all the NFL players, who's the best basketball player on the team? Could you beat this other Broncos player in basketball? Caden Stearns said he was nice. He said that he would destroy PJ Locke. He said that he would be happy for us to go down there and video him if we wanted to. So I have Caden Stearns at point guard. I have Patrick Surtain as my shooting guard, much like you. I want a defensive player there. I'm trying to build my team much like the Broncos or the Nuggets, right? I'm going my scorer at my point. I'm going my 3 and D at the 2 guard.
Love it.
At my small forward, I have Cortland Sutton. I just went with the profile there. I went with my long, athletic defender type guy. That's how I envision Cortland Sutton playing on the basketball court. Like I said, Randy Gregory. Gregory, very interesting personality. I think that he's kind of my Draymond Green, my yeah, that's kind of how I envision Randy Gregory being out there. Extremely long arms. We need to get a wingspan on Randy Gregory, by the way. That guy, extremely long arms, batted passes all the time at the line of scrimmage. So I would go with him. And then at my center, a guy that I'm not going to fault anyone if they don't know yet, because he just signed with the Broncos. I'm going with Chris Manhertz, the tight end from Jacksonville Jaguars. We're talking about a 6'6", 255-pound tight end. He's a blocker, and he has hands, right? He's a tight end. So I want him to go up there, grab the rebounds, pull him down. And I'm just looking for a guy that can set picks, rim run a little bit. He's athletic, tight end, grab rebounds. That's what I'm looking for there.
I cannot wait for him to try to fight Mike McGlinchey on the block, bro. Like, no way he's stopping him on the block. Come on now.
Yeah, but I'm beating you down the court, Ryan. That's what you're forgetting.
That's probably true.
And I will say this. So I found this out, and I felt bad because I had already stolen Randy Gregory from Joey Wright, so I couldn't steal Chris Manhertz too. But after he said the Manhertz thing, I looked into it. He played 4 years of, frankly, I don't know what division this is, but he played 4 years of college basketball at Canisius College and then transferred to playing football instead. He was one of those classic like tight end situations where like they see an athletic basketball player and they're like, hey, why not play football instead?
The OG Julius Thomas right there.
Yeah, exactly. But he's a legit basketball player, like a Jimmy Graham or Antonio Gates or something. So I think he's a good pick, but I couldn't also steal that one from Drew.
What is your starting 5?
All right, so I went a little different route because what I wanted is I want to lean mean. I'm a big fan of defense. I'm a big fan of the Broncos secondary, but I wanted a smattering of just really physical play. Also, height isn't everything, but I did go ahead and put myself a little bit of a taller center because I had a different name there at first. So don't judge me. I made a change, but I feel good about it. Justin Simmons is going to be your point guard. You've got your shooting guard at Caden Stearns. I think Caden Stearns could basically do anything he sets his mind to. And I've got a couple of those players on my list just because I believe so highly in them. Also, all of the players I chose were in that 39.5 to 42. Caden Stearns had a record-breaking 42 vertical leap. So you want to keep that into consideration because that boy has them hops. Justin Simmons was at 40. Marvin Mims is going to be obviously 39.5. What I'm interested to see is what we've been saying about Marvin Mims is his ability to play so much bigger than he actually is. I believe you're going to see a lot of play from him that mimics those taller wide receivers. So if you're going to be doing that out on the basketball court, that, rebounds are pretty important here, defensive and offensively. Riley Moss is the shocker nobody's going to like, but I do not care. Vertical at 39 inches. Talk about a player who's been through adversity. I like a lot of heart on my team. I want to see those types of players that have been discounted and dodged and just doubted the entire way. Riley Moss is that player. I would consider him the best draft pick for the Broncos from this year. Why not throw him on a basketball court and see what he can do, especially when he's got the jumping ability and defensive ability that he does have. Lastly but not least, my center is going to be Tim Patrick. One, because he's 6'4", but two, his ability to combat the point of contention for the ball. You're going to need that. You're going to need him up there stealing the ball away from the opposing team. You're going to need an aggressive takeover machine. And that's what Tim Patrick is. When you put him up against anybody, he's going to come down with that ball. We've got a confused viewer in the chat. I absolutely love it. It's, of course, Mr. Seegers. Mr. Seegers, I'm sorry. We're doing a little bit of a...
bad.
Awesome. I think that was a really fun exercise. I had a lot of fun. We broke this down for about 30 minutes.
Bree made the Lob City Broncos. I like it. I'm not mad at it.
I love that.
We're playing a little
It'd be
bit
a
of
fun
rec
team.
I can't believe nobody picked Greg Dulcich. I must be on Dulcich Island here. That's crazy.
No, I almost did.
She's a hater. Here we thought Bree was the biggest Dulcich fan, but I think Ryan Blackburn actually is.
Bree was messaging me telling me that Dulcich was going to be her coach. So I love that.
I love that.
Yeah, if you had to pick a coach, who would it be? Okay. Yeah. Ryan, we like to do a little thing here on Let's Talk Broncos. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's literally everyone's favorite time of the evening. And that's Joey's question of the day.
Let's go.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Not used to the four-person.
I'm
not Joey Fatale.
Shout out to Joey Chestnut for again beating the, all the Joeys. Congratulations. Anyways, Ryan, I'm very curious of your answer here. Okay. So I'm going to ask it round table, but I'm asking because you're here. Who is your favorite Nugget of all time? Is it a current Nugget or is it one of the past? And I'm going to ask the same to you guys, but I'm more curious about Ryan. I'll be honest.
It is a current Nugget. Okay. It is Nikola Jokic. I understand that that's like not a controversial take at all.
Yeah.
I think the way that he sort of changed the game for the Nuggets. Like, think about like what Steph Curry did for the Golden State Warriors, or what Dirk Nowitzki did for the Dallas Mavericks, or you could pick a guy who like changed the entire complexion of a franchise. When you have somebody who is that singularly impactful from not just a playing standpoint, but from a person standpoint, he changed the game for Denver, where they were rudderless before he got in the building. Michael Malone can also take some credit for this for sure, because of the way that he coached Jokic hard, the way that he established his own personal morals and what he wanted to establish with Denver. But Jokic is the guy, not just because of his talent, although he's one of the most talented players of all time. It's because of the kind of person that he is, and because of the kind of example that he sets, and the barometer that he has for everybody, and they want to be great for him. It's a very rare thing and a really, really cool aspect of this Nuggets team. And I think the fact that he has as much respect as he does from the contingent there, he can walk on water. Like, he walks on water in that Nuggets organization, and it rubs off on just about everybody else.
Yeah, no, I can't be mad at Jokic. I really can't. I think he's already cemented himself, in my opinion. I'm not old enough to go back all the way, but I think that Nikola Jokic is the best Nugget ever, in my opinion, already after that championship win. So you can't be it when you're talking about a player of his caliber, 2-time MVP, everything that he's done for the Nuggets to this point. You can't be mad at that answer at all. Bree, who is your favorite Nugget ever?
I'm going to go all time, and this isn't going to shock anybody if you know anything about me. Chris, the Birdman Anderson, is my absolute favorite Nugget ever. That man is, we talk about enigmas. That dude's a whole personality and a half, much to the akin and less to the scrutiny of a Dennis Rodman type personality. Just some guy who really shouldn't have gotten the chances that he did, got the chances, blew up, became a significant role player for the Denver Nuggets, and he looked good doing it. Completely outside of the realm of ordinary, and I myself don't like to consider myself ordinary whatsoever. So I think you could almost blame the Birdman for who I am today. But current Nugget is going to be Aaron Gordon, because oh my goodness, can that kid ball? Has come in, done everything that was asked of him, was put in a position that wasn't remarkably fair, and then said, you know what, I'm going to play however I'm going to have to do it, and I'm going to make sure that not only am I contributing, but I'm making sure that I keep my spot that I earned. Like, it's just been, above all else, a story is more important to me. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is the best NBA player. His story is amazing. I love everything he exudes. But to me, somebody who reflects my personality is who I'm going to gravitate towards the most. It's got to be those two. Zach.
I like it.
Once ate crepes next to Birdman. Won't add any more context there. I think it's funnier without it. Also, funnily enough, those are my girlfriend's two favorite players. I thought you were going to go with Aaron Gordon because I know you love him so much. My girlfriend's two favorite players are Birdman and Aaron Gordon. So very similar to you there.
It was exactly the same.
I'm going with Aaron Gordon. There's a lot of names I could go with here. Like, Jokic is probably the real answer, but I feel, we already talked about him, and I am a bit of a hipster sports fan. I don't like going with the most popular. Like, I got a Bradley Roby jersey in the 2015, season. Like,
you don't have a Bull jersey, though.
I got a Jamal Murray jersey first because I was like, I can't go for Jokic. But Aaron Gordon won me over when he ran through the streets of Denver. And now, like, I know that's very recent. That's after the last time he played basketball, but he's still in his shorts and he's hanging out of the car. And then he jumped out of the car at some point and started running through the streets. And man, I love it. I love it so much. He's my favorite Nugget. And also just everything he does for the team. Like, when they need him to step up on offense and set a tone in game 1 of the NBA Finals, he does that. And then he blocks LeBron to help them get by the Lakers and is manning all the toughest defensive matchups all postseason long. I don't know. He's just, what a guy. And he just seems so likable and so cool and everything. I hope he's as cool in person as he seems from afar, Ryan.
Very cool.
Aaron Gordon.
Very, very cool.
Yes. I like those answers. Birdman, we got Gordon, we got Jokic. Mine would be Jokic, but I'm going to try to be interesting for the podcast. No. I'm trying to make it different between all of us here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go with Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot. That's what I'm going to go with. I like that answer. Floor general. He was a guy that started his career, wasn't great at the beginning. If you really look at Chauncey Billups' career, journeyman, Chauncey Billups was, and he was a guy that I remember growing up and I loved. I loved him because he went to Colorado, CU Boulder, right? And then became a Nugget at some point. And I really, really loved that team. My first Nuggets game I ever went to was a Chauncey Billups, Carmelo Anthony team. And I love it. I love Chauncey Billups. I wish him the best in Portland, kind of. I always want the Nuggets to win. But that's my take there. I really like Chauncey Billups. If Jokic, I will say, is my 1. Chauncey Billups is my 2.
Yeah, they're great answers. Like, they really are great answers. Like, that's we've got some ones in the chat here. Ty Lawson, Nene, Bull. Although I'm not gonna swear on Bull. That's for sure. But that's all right.
Ryan, we can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. This was an incredibly fun episode. We've kept you much past what we promised. But before we let you go, I got to give you the floor. Tell us what you got going on right now. Shout out any work you got out. I know you just released an article like an hour ago, and you're constantly publishing over on milehighsports.com. But tell everybody where they can find your work, where they can follow you, what you got coming up. Shoot, it's yours.
Yeah, folks. I mean, hey, we're on the MHS YouTube channel. I'll probably go live on this one in about an hour to do a preseason or a summer league preview a little bit on the pickaxe and roll side of things. But that's the podcast that I do. It's called Pickaxe and Roll. I love to cover the Nuggets on there and have just been enjoying that. That's been a great experience. You can follow all the writing at milehighsports.com. I'm also on Instagram now. That's kind of odd. That's the first time I've had a real Instagram account. So we're just enjoying life, trying to worry without Twitter breaking. That would be great.
Yeah, we got the Ryan Blackburn follow on Instagram. It was a whole celebration in the group chat, Ryan.
I hear the MHS offices were jumping for joy when I actually got an Instagram account. Like that was something that actually happened from Anilo. It was great.
And absolutely check out Ryan's coverage if you haven't already. We had fans of the show in the Discord being like, "Great job on booking Ryan." By the way, he's the best. He's the best Nuggets analyst. My college drinking buddy texted me and was like, "Great job on getting Ryan. He's my go-to for the Nuggets." He's a Lakers fan, by the way, but he's a big basketball guy.
Oh, sorry.
The people from all over love Ryan Blackburn, so go check out his work. And while you're looking up the MHS YouTube, look up the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube too. We'll have stuff over there. That's my shout.
Cool. Everyone, please follow me at JR Drafts on Twitter. Make sure you're liking, subscribing to the YouTube at Let's Talk Broncos. Make sure you're liking this video here at Mile High Sports. Again, Ryan, thank you for joining the podcast. Man, you were terrific. You were terrific. I loved all the Nuggets talk. Thank you for even answering my questions before the podcast started. I had a lot of Nuggets questions. But Bree, where can they find your work?
Joey was bogarting Ryan's time. We almost didn't start. You can follow me over on Twitter. Bree Maestas 303. Lots of fun stuff coming your way. Go follow Zach _Seegers. Go follow Ryan, NBA Blackburn. Go follow JR Drafts if you feel so obliged. We'll catch you next week. They'll be here on Thursday. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks for the tremendous show, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night.